Let's turn our attention to this now. Child Protection Week, as I mentioned when I took you through the newspaper, it kicked off on Monday. We've been exploring various challenges that are facing kids all week. And this morning, we're talking about teen pregnancy, at least. Joining me now, Professor Elaine Salo from the Institute for Women's and Gender Studies. Prof, a very good morning to you. Thanks again for joining us. Thousands of our children are having children. What's the problem here? Where are we going wrong?
Ayanda, I think, first of all, as a society, we need to be able to instill hope in our young people so that they can see the reasons for postponing reproduction. And that means a concerted effort on the part of parents to talk more openly about the inconvenience of early pregnancy, about our education system in terms of charting forward a career and the importance of education for young women and young men. For young men to be held accountable for impregnating young women. But we also have to be careful that we don't criminalize our young people, especially the ones under the age of 18. And then in terms of enabling our young people to see a future for themselves. It doesn't help for us that 25% of our young people leaving school under the ages of between the ages of 15 and 25 with high unemployment rates. So a sense of hopelessness. And it's very important that we instill hope so our young people see the importance of postponing reproduction and not seeing it as a sense of fate almost, but being able to plan and
It's such a multifaceted issue. We know we have the issue of sugar daddies, ukutwalwa, rape, and as well as you've just mentioned, consensual teenage sex, all of these leading to unplanned pregnancies. Whose responsibility is it? Many times we'll point to government. We also take a look at parents, but whose responsibility is it to provide solutions?
It's every adult's responsibility in our society to assist in working together in providing solutions. That means it comes down to parenting and family. It comes down to the school system and the educators. It also puts responsibility on our religious educators as well as government and private sector to assist in creating internships, possibilities of futures that don't involve early and very inconvenient and burdensome pregnancies for younger people. But let's also not forget the added responsibility, especially in relation to HIV/AIDS orphans, who require those alternative systems of socialization in the absence of parents who might have died.
Now, this is not only a problem of sex or sexual abuse. Every teen pregnancy is a sign that unprotected intercourse has taken place. The potential spread of HIV among young South Africans, this must be aggravated by this issue.
Oh yes, definitely. And again, young people are just coming to terms with the growing and maturing systems of sexuality, the excitement of relationships, affect, desire. But it's also about teaching them about self-discipline, as it were. And we cannot only hold our young women to responsible here. Young men also have to be held to account here. It's a very difficult one. It's a complicated issue, but it's incumbent upon us, every single adult in the society, to take responsibility for our young people. And as I said, the important thing about instilling hope in these young people to see a future that postpones reproduction.
At times, socioeconomic factors contribute to the prevalence of teen pregnancies, but these the crisis pregnancies could actually also lead to young girls dropping out of school, being dependent on a man, or settling for lower paying jobs, thus perpetuating the cycle of poverty.
Yes, of course, and it is often perpetuated through some of our stereotypes around, the ultimate sense of femininity being arrived at with marriage and children. But ultimately, a woman's future has to be her own responsibility. It lays in being educated, for being able to chart a career for herself, being able to see herself as economically independent, because that gives one agency in order to develop and plan one's life without a sense of dependency on men. And that is what we need to instill in our young girls, as well as hold young men accountable for unwanted pregnancy and unwanted reproductive consequences.
Prof, as briefly as you can, a parent perhaps is watching with a teenage son or daughter. What do you have to say to them, practical steps on how they can try and prevent their teenagers from engaging in sexual activity that will lead to teenage pregnancy?
I think honest, open talk around sexuality is very important, developing a sense of trust with one's son or daughter. And this relates as much to mothers, to fathers as to mothers. Often it's seen as women's responsibilities as mothers. It's not only our responsibility, it's that of fathers too. And speaking very openly and honestly about the inconvenient and economic burdens of early pregnancy. This is not to say that we criminalize reproduction and pregnancy. It's just pointing out to the heavy burdens that one takes on when it happens too early in one's life.
Thank you so much. That was Professor Elaine Salo from the Institute for Women's and Gender Studies. And with that, let's take a look at our headlines.
News that moves. eNCA.com.